This is the face of Nightreign's oldest, possibly most influential character, and Nightreign is all about its characters. The Nightfarer cast determine your in-game playstyle, they give most of the game's lore, and they make up almost all of the memes about the game online. With such a memorable set of playable characters, it's easy to overlook ones on the side, characters like the Iron Menial or the Wandering Merchant, but mostly the Menial. This puppet avoids the spotlight and is generally found helping Nightfarers in their remembrances. But if you pay attention to him, you start to see that he isn't just a butler to the Round Table Hold. He is a vital guide to each Nightfarer, and he makes things possible that would be otherwise unattainable. Not to mention, he's the Hold's oldest resident, and since he's been operating here for untold eons, he may be the most influential character we meet. So, what is the story of this supposed servant? Who is the Iron Menial? Names are given for a reason, so let's start there. The Iron Menial is called so because he is 1. A construct made of metal, and 2. A servant of the Round Table Hold and the Nightfarers. Menial can mean simple, kind of grunt level work, or a person with a job of that caliber. So it's not a glowing title, but from what we see of the Menial, that likely doesn't bother him. When we inquire, the Menial tells us that he
began as one among many, a single cog in a great machine of war.
Considering their similarities, he was likely once a marionette soldier like the ones we see in the base game employed at Raya Lucaria. He continues, saying,
But then I was selected for modification, to become proficient in the field of housekeeping. It did not proceed entirely as expected.
The Menial was altered for some reason, but eventually tossed away, only to wake up at this hold where he began his current domestic duties. He now seems to be at the beck and call of the Nightfarers. While the Menial certainly assists the others, aiding our characters when they need information, even trying to prepare their favorite food items at their request, his self-assessment as a humble attendant misses the full story. Being a construct, he doesn't die of old age, and with this long life, he tells us that he has been at the Hold since the original Nightfarers, or ancient people of these lands. He was doing his menial roles even then, long ago, since he said he looked after them. He was there when these ancient people were put to rest to perform the ritual that summons their descendants to the Hold to fight the Night Lord. We only get confirmation of this origin story because the Menial was around to witness it and is still around to tell us about it. From Duchess's journals, we see that he has been continually around since then, as he was there to greet her when she arrived at the Hold, long before the rest of the Nightfarers. Interestingly, he says "we" when greeting Duchess, and I don't know if he means that there were other intelligent entities around then, or if that just means like the other puppet in the training grounds and the formless master, if that's a real guy, god, force of nature thing. He also knows Duchess's past as a righteous thief. He shows foreknowledge again when he points out that Wilder suffered injuries in the outside world before coming to the Hold. It makes sense given how long he's been around, but the Iron Menial is likely the most attuned to how things work in the Shrouded Hold. He has been consciously aware of the night longer than anyone, and he guides the Nightfarers through it. And since the Nightfarers' forays mess with their memory, having the Menial around to maintain a clear record of events is absolutely vital, especially for us lore hunters trying to piece together the story. Beyond the remembrances, we know the Menial sends Wilder out on missions and errands too, procuring materials and tools to help the Nightfarers fight against the night. Just like how Guardian found a new flock at the Hold, I think the Menial also found a new family, a new machine to be part of. A machine where he's one of the most irreplaceable cogs, and hopefully a little happier than when at war. Even though this is already a lot, the Iron Menial isn't just an advantage over the Night and the oldest resident of the Hold. He is also the one most resistant to the Hold's destruction. At the end of Duchess's questline, we entrust the Menial to go to Wilder in the outside world to make sure he doesn't die from his injuries. This means leaving the Duchess/Priestess to die alone with the Round Table Hold. And while the Menial showed his loyalty by wanting to stay with her until the end, he showed that he can survive leaving the Hold by accepting the quest. The Menial can outlive the Shrouded Hold and return to the lands between, and maybe anywhere else in the outside world too. I don't have any evidence for this, but since the Menial is a construct, I wouldn't be surprised if leaving the hold for him means something more tangible than the disappearing light show we see with the Nightfarers, sans Duchess, at the game's end. So it's clear that the Iron Menial is a bit more than meets the eye. He's not a medieval Roomba. But I think there's yet another layer of significance if we look deeper into the fact that he's likely a marionette soldier. These puppets were made to serve the sorcerers, and as I said, we encounter them in the base game at Raya Lucaria, the magical centerpiece of the rainy lands of Liurnia. The Liurnian connection is important because we might find something similar in Hjolstor, the final Night Lord. What we can learn about Hjolstor mostly comes from his appearance and the relic he drops. The Night of the Lord is the night as it was characterized by him. It reads, "The country lay in ruin. The man who was once knight had challenged the hero, but he too was no match. He fell, just another body in a great pile. But eventually he awoke, crawling out from underneath the others. Though he had failed to protect anything or anyone, he yet lived. And so he cursed the world. It was the dead of night, and from the sky poured down a great rain." Hjolstor was not a god or royal figure, but that doesn't mean he was a nobody, despite what some commenters may say. Ignoring the typo that makes for a suggestive double entendre, Hjolstor was a warrior and knight of some merit. His challenge to the hero, whether that be Radagon or someone unknown, is recorded here as a distinct challenge, as opposed to Hjolstor just getting killed by the hero during battle. And if we look to the Hjolstor we find in-game, we see him wielding a number of weapons. The most striking of these is definitely the Moonlight Greatsword, the large blue blade that sends out magic slashes. This is a hallmark of From Software games, showing up in some fashion in nearly all of their recent games, whether fantasy or sci-fi themed. We saw it in Elden Ring's base game as the Dark Moon Greatsword. This version was, as the name implies, a little darker, but the blue tint and magic slash hallmarks were there. And rather than being just a small Easter egg, the sword played a notable role in the lore and story. Through Ranni's quest, we see that it was part of Carian tradition for royalty to gift such a moon sword to one's spouse. One way to read these clues is that Hjolstor was the spouse of a Carian queen, whether that be Rennala or someone else, and he fought Radagon during the Liurnian Wars. Another idea is that the Moonsword was lodged in Hjolstor by some past Nightfarer who had a Carian connection while they were trying to take him down. I think a point against this latter theory is that the Moonsword is the defining weapon of Hjolstor's Phase 2, which is the part of the fight where he fights us under his name, Hjolstor the Night Lord. In Phase 1, we are fighting the Shape of the Night. This seems to me to present a stronger connection between Hjolstor, the sword, and the magic around it. And while he may not have been Rennala's spouse specifically, some connection to the Carians is the most likely interpretation to me. So to loop back this long tangent, Hjolstor seems to have ties to the Carians and Liurnia, and that is precisely where marionette soldiers were primarily employed to serve sorcerers. Now, I think all of this may shed a little light on one of the most peculiar moments in Nightreign. In terms of age and significance, Recluse may be the only one to rival the Iron Menial. We saw her many feats in my Nightfarers video, and some of the game's original 1.00 text points to Recluse as having been around during the time of the Cutting Gifted tribe, the founders of the Shrouded Round Table Hold and progenitors of our fight against the Night. This would mean that Recluse, unlike all the other Nightfarers, doesn't have an ancestor that calls her to the Shrouded Round Table. She is just called herself because she has been around since then. In Recluse's remembrance quests, we find the Night Lord visiting the Iron Menial in a dream. In it, the Menial was left the bone-like stone, which is the bone of an outer god with the power to expunge divine essence. This is Hjolstor, or another aspect of the Night, giving Recluse the ability to soothe her infant creation, which eventually became part of the Night Lord. And this time-bending Night Lord chose to deliver this absolutely essential piece of its plan through the Iron Menial. Maybe it saw the Menial as the fastidious butler who'd never fail to deliver an assignment to its masters, but I think this discounts both parties a little bit. No matter how dutiful of a servant, a god being like the Night Lord wouldn't leave such an important task to something of no note. It could be a recognition of the Menial as a long-lived, influential combatant who has helped resist the Night Lord for eons, or it could be an understanding of the potential Carian connection that the two share. Or it could be both. Whichever the case, I think the Night Lord recognized the Iron Menial for the exceptional character he is, and that is, at least partly, why he was given the item to give to Recluse. It's easy to overlook the Menial as a minor helper who simply exists to flesh out the round table, make it seem like less of a carbon copy from the base game. But if you pay close attention, you learn that he is a deeply significant thread to the story of the Hold and of Nightreign. As far as Butlers go, he joins a select group of those who make the characters we love what they are. Thanks for watching this video, and thanks to my patrons for your support. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.